Hey y'all, back again for another video. This time to texture the mech that was built in the other video. And yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. But I set up a few other things I just wanted to show a minute. Landing on this new destroyer that's still far from finished. We have the entire line of SVs that I've created throughout time, and I kind of lined up some. I actually used this scene over here for a screenshot on the recent MX1 and MX2 posts. So I just wanted to show you something where I started with SVs, and these are all unreleased ships. And yeah, I changed my name. They used to be MERK for Merc. Don't ask me why. I just didn't know what to call them, so I came up with that. Well, this is my very first SV. As you can see, yeah, it's what it is. Can't say too much about it. It flew. It shot stuff. It wasn't very tough. And then I came up with this contraption, and this one I actually used quite a bit in game back in around Alpha 5 to early Alpha 6 time period. It worked. Again, same idea with the back. Put some things back here which seemed to never get destroyed. I mean, the front would take a lot of damage, but the back stayed pretty safe, and it was kind of nice having some components around. Then I started, working on other ones. This other contraption over here. It's never really quite finished this one or textured it, or not that I did much with texturing then either. But then I came up with this one that I was actually fairly happy with. This was the Merc. For unknown reasons, I called it LR-23. I think it meant long range. But I can't even remember if this thing had a warp core. So yeah, and then this thing here, yuck. And yeah, and then this thing over here. Is it the same ship? Kind of. It's a little different, I guess. So these were all the early, the first SVs I built, and then it went up to the MX8, which I actually don't have spawned here. So the MX8 was my favorite and best, and it was the only one I actually released to the public, or released at all. One thing I started probably a good 6-8 months ago was this behemoth, which was far from complete. This was intended to be like a MX20 or 20 something. It was going to be the biggest one. Don't mind most of the temporary setup. It's just for so it could park and move. But I kind of abandoned working on this one because I realized how much time it was going to take, and now, especially with the CPU and everything going on, it almost seems like something like this is just, I don't know, dead in the water. Pursuing such a big, expensive, heavy ship like this, that would CPU would be so far through the roof, it would be crazy. I'd probably need 600-800 RCS in this thing alone once it was done. So I kind of stopped working on this one, and I don't know if I'll ever get back to it or not. Maybe a CV conversion or something, I don't know. But to start on the newer line, so the MX1, which is now on the workshop, MX2, the revamped version, also on the workshop. I just updated the existing post. The older MX3, this one I think I'm going to do a conversion on as well, something like what I did with the MX2. get it up to Alpha 9 specs, and work on the texturing and colors and probably some body modifications and get it up to date. So that's coming. Also, I plan on addressing the MX5, get that one going to the new style as well, try to get it conformed to that look. This one was built before there was such a thing as a color palette that you could change colors on, so I just had to use the default colors. And also I realized how many issues I have with lines and texturing and things like that, even on this ship. Then we got the MAV, which breaks the game rules because it runs way too many rocket launchers. Only 4 is allowed. This one has 12. I decided I don't want to change this ship to make it compliant with game rules because, I don't know, I just like it. It's a fun ship. Nothing like shooting 12 rockets at once. Although, yeah, you'd have to be on a specialized server or your own game to use this vessel. Otherwise, it breaks too many rules. But it's a fun ship. Love to destroy stuff. The AME, second generation of a mid-cockpit design. And that all started out with the MXR, which was, I called it MXR prototype. And it really was. I was experimenting with how to make a mid-cockpit design, how to make it work. So this led to this, and then later on led to this ship, the MX-14, which was recently released. MX-14 is quite a behemoth again, far bigger than any of these other SVs in this part. But again, it's got the issue with cannot comply to CPU. It's big, it's heavy, it's pretty tough on the front. I never said it's, but it was made for going after POIs, not a PvP thing. It's not tough on the back. In fact, if you blow through this door here, you could start shooting the cockpit here. There's a little bit of protection, but not a lot. And then the MX-9, this was a revamped MX-8, changed the body lines a lot, kind of dressed it up. Now I don't have the MX-8 out here right now, but this one was, I think it looks far better than the MX-8 did. But it's got about the same functionality, although it's Alpha 9 specs with storage and whatnot. And then the recent Intrepid, or MLV Intrepid. This one was fun. I had probably more fun building this ship than most of them lately, probably because I got to get out of my regular theme and play with some colors and emulate some Crazy Z detailing, which I thought was really cool. I would like to do something else like this again, but it's not really my theme. So then there's the Chimera. I think I said that right. This one was fun. This, what I built it was a goal to make a ship achieve 40 in speed in all directions and have good maneuverability. So at the time when I built this, though, I did something that a lot of other people did, and it still works to this day, is I embedded some thrusters inside the ship. Some are exposed and some are buried away. Like up here, all the forward thrusters are buried. So that is going to be a huge problem coming into Alpha 10 because that's not allowed anymore. And I kind of suspected that was going to happen at some point, so I didn't build any more ships like this with embedded or hidden thrusters. Unfortunately, I might have to return to try to rebuild another ship kind of like this. This one was really designed for speed and handling, and another big aspect was it was maxed out the SV allowed weapons. So kind of a fun ship. why I had these big extension arms out here and the guns out front is to keep it a little bit away from the cockpit. However, I was hearing that splash damage and things with things shooting at this would still hit the cockpit. So not a perfect design by any means. MX-15, this was my first bigger SV, and this one has the enclosed cockpit and whatnot. It's a fun ship, but then again, the cockpit was weak. This glass is easily destroyed, and then you're very vulnerable to front attacks. The MX-18 was built after the MX-15, and this one was trying to the first ship with a secure cockpit, as well as a front cockpit. This one took a long time to build. It just kills the CPU, like, unbelievably. I think this is running, actually, how many is it running? 353 RCS. I think it's still 100 CPU per RCS. You can just do the math there and realize that this ship just can't work with new specs. And then recently I built these two transits. They're kind of similar. Like I built this one first, and then I took a lot of the parts and came up with this larger design with the same a lot of copy and pasting. However, I modified this one a lot, where I had to expand this out, add more thrusters. I changed the cockpit around to an enclosed cockpit, and of course it's longer. But it has similarities, definitely. A lot of it was reused between one ship and the other. This was fun. This is, I just took the MLV and I retextured it to this crazy light scheme. And at night, this thing looks crazy. As you can see, it kind of sticks out, and those this effect that you get around it is, I think, pretty cool. I don't know if I'm going to release this or not. I was thinking about releasing this to friends only, but I don't know if I would want to put it on, regular workshop. It's identical, short of texturing on the other MLV. I didn't change a single thing about it, but it's got a definitely different look, and it's pretty fun. Just can't get over that effect there. That's just weird. It's kind of a bloom effect, or doing reflections. And what's kind of cool from the top view, you get these lines off the wings. It kind of looks like beams of light shooting off from the sides. Kind of like that. And then the old C-Axis was a very cheap open-air cockpit motorcycle-like design. Fun. I actually used it in game a little bit, and then I realized that flying into cold climates or warm climates, or basically any environmental hazards, and not too good for that. But it was fun. It was interesting. I built this for fun. This is the Might RX. This one was just a concept of putting this giant thruster that goes through the entire center of the ship, and you are strapped to the top of it. It's extremely fast, it's extremely vulnerable, and it will kill you. But it was a lot of fun to build, and it was a quick build. And the modified MX-5, the 5T, this one is similar materials, the MX-5. The big difference with this ship is it has more thrust, quite a bit more, making it fairly agile. And the T stands for tactical, so it's basically a quicker ship to shoot POIs, but it's weak. It's just a steel frame construction. Has more weapon mounts than the MX-5. and it's faster, but it's the same body material and it's not tougher. And then this was the MX2W. This was I kept this one the original design where the new MX2 was changed around a fair amount. It has a drone hatch and other things. This was the warp version of the MX2, and I colored it differently. And this is right when the new color palette came out, so I was kind of playing around to see what I could do. So I went with some kind of grayish greens, dark, and I thought it looked kind of neat. It has very little interior room though, and that's so getting this to the new storage system, it could be done. This warp core takes up a lot of space, and I had to put in these guardrails to keep you far enough away from it. Without these even curves here, I was able to fry myself in the corner, so that's why I put these in here. And then the MX-9R. This one was the MX-9, but some more thrusters and some more guns, and a little more storage and a little more ammo storage. But it's not 7500 CPU compliant like the MX-9 was. So that's pretty much the entire line of SVs that I've built to date. But what I actually wanted to do today is to texture this Mech. Now this Mech is kind of fake, and there was a suggestion in the comment to make it into like a turret system to use it for defense. That's not a bad idea. It really isn't. Problem I've got is I would have to convert it. Right now it's a SV, and it would need to be a HV to have any turrets on it, and it's not that way yet. I may think about doing that, but what I was kind of thinking in the short term was I would convert this to like carbon substrate, remove the actual guns and put in like fake looking guns, maybe some antennas or something to look like weapons, and have it super cheap, where you can just spawn this and look at it and have it parked around your base. I don't know. I built this for fun, not for function. A legged vehicle like this just doesn't have any function in the game, short of that idea of making it into some kind of defense item that you can place around your base. But design-wise, if I was trying to make something like that, I could do a whole heck of a lot better job with layout and the turrets and everything like that, because I wouldn't be able to get a lot of turrets on this unless I changed it around a lot. And I don't really want to do that. It's decoration. But today I wanted to go through and texture this, and kind of a tutorial. I've done other texture tutorials, but most of them were kind of brief or not on a real item. So let's get started. All right. So I think I'll start with a foot. That's another thing I was going to change too, is try to get these landing gears so they're up further, or use a different model so it doesn't like sit up like that. I actually wanted it to rest on the feet. That's another issue here. All right. What can we do? So as I texture, and you might have seen this before if you watched other videos, is I pretty much hand do every texture on these things. I'm a big stickler on these lines, especially now. I didn't used to be. I didn't know there was a way I could make it look good with using that texture, so I didn't even try. And then later on I realized, hey, I could do something about that. So I do a lot of experimenting when I'm texturing these things, and then I usually do more than one revision, I guess you can say. Like this would be the first coat of textures, and then I will look over it again and tweak and detail it. Why I use a lot of this particular texture is it just lines up nicely, and I like to see the seams line up good. And that's just a thing with me. A little crazy about that. Um, Little tricks like these corners here. If you do this particular texture that way, you get a nice smooth surface on it with a little trim line on the side. Stuff like that I look for, trying to make the textures as fancy as I can with what's there. And these sloped blocks really suck to texture. I mean, I think you all know that by now. But there's just ways you have to work around it. And a lot of time it's by just filling them in. But leaving some lines, just enough to give it that metal look without looking too flat. Yeah, the texturing is fairly boring and monotonous, but in my experience, it makes or breaks a lot of designs. If you got a decent body and layout, everything like that, and bad texturing, it hurts it. Um, or I won't even say bad texturing, but if I were just to fill this whole thing in with like metal and add like a strip of one thing here and there, it wouldn't look as good. Now what, I'm going to power this up to, oh, it doesn't even have any gas. Just so I can see the texture lights. Now this thing does actually move. I cheated right now and I put a bunch of thrusters in this back area so I can get position it around. It's got a little cockpit in there too. So it actually does fly, sort of. Highly would not recommend trying to go after POIs or anything with this. But bad idea. So what was fun about this mech though is all the joints that I was thinking about, like trying to make it look like this foot would angle up from here and that this leg would bend over here, and then coming up here it looks like this would rotate a little bit. Although I was thinking about that in this area, I think I could do a little better with. Maybe add in some shielding up front or something that looks like this leg could twist out a little bit. All cosmetic stuff though. Sometimes I'll take these little slivers and like add a small light like that. Certain ones work. And so much of it is just mixing it up all the time too. That's why I could easily run 3 of these, which fit nicely on these very small blocks. However, or I could have a couple vents on the side using this other texture. And I run into this a lot too, where it's like, hey, I wanted to texture this bottom part of the block different from this part of the block. It's going to happen a lot. When you build it, it's very hard to tell which way they're rotated. Sometimes you can with some materials, easier than others. But after the fact, you can always rotate it, and then you get your surface the way you want it. I don't actually have to hit these a lot of these side areas like I am, because they're already the same texture. Probably should chill on that, but I don't know. OCD? I don't know what it is. Got to see what it's going to look like. What to run here? I do so get tired of using this texture so often, though. Yeah, those line up there. I guess what I look at so much is the seams. Like, where does it line up on the edges of that texture? I hate to see just broken lines. Actually, some diamond plate there. In the past too, I didn't treat the bottoms the same as the rest of the ship. I kind of changed that now. I try to make the bottoms, even though you don't see it as much or hardly at all, sometimes I like to have them look at just as good as the rest of the ship. Of course, it's more work, but it's all about quality, not quantity, I guess. So. now I'm just kind of filling in the sides here with this, and then we'll change it. I'm going to mess with this. Now, I haven't found any texture to actually work on these pieces or align well either. Although I keep trying occasionally, you know, what do they call that, insanity? You know, you keep on trying and you get the same results over and over again. um, Not sure about all these little lights I've been adding. Sometimes I'll take a look at it later and add some texture lights or remove some. Point is, I like to get some in, but I don't like to overdo it. Sometimes I don't know how it's going to look until I take a look, you know, stand back and look at it from a distance and, hey, how does that look? That actually does. Well, one thing I just noticed, so I'm happy that I didn't know which way I was doing this. These, if they're not rotated correctly, you will not get that texture break on these, so you can do the insides and the outsides different. I got lucky because I didn't know which way it was when I was putting them in place, and looks like I guessed right. Otherwise I would end up rotating those. Really want to try to get some other stuff in here. do try to keep a similar theme though, like I was using these on the front here, kind of going up the center and up the side, and doing the same thing on the back, just to keep consistency on how it's textured. I got some funky stuff going on here. Hmm. I'm not even sure why I have that block there. What was I thinking? Odd. For now. Could change. Not sure exactly how I want to do this part. Maybe a half and half thing. Could try something like that. Alright, well, one textured leg pretty much. And I do crazy things like what I just did there, like, hey, this one is this. Why? I don't know. Why not? Oh yeah. It's so weird. Some of these deco pieces and things have good collision, others are terrible. And it's kind of like there's no way I can texture underneath this thing. I've tried. Well, I take that back. If you can line yourself up perfectly, like in it, looking up, which is extremely hard to do, especially with the small blocks on a SV or HV to texture up there. So yeah, I kind of stopped screwing with it, and now what I do is I just remove these things that I put in there, and oh wow, look at that, backwards. That's another neat thing. When you go through and hand texture everything, you're looking at everything very closely, and you see any little flaw you might have along the way. So it gives you opportunity to kind of fix that up too. Of course, if you want to put the time into it to actually do this, it is not quick, especially on big things. This isn't so bad, but some of the stuff, my gosh, it can take a long time. Also, I'm kind of chilling out on the high-speed videos for now. Eventually, I might do something again, but maybe like a 2 to 4x speed and have commentary um, as it's going. I haven't quite got to that point. I was debating on buying a piece of software so I could edit videos better. Currently, I was using a demo version of was that familiar or whatever? I forget the exact name of it. Um, Not 100% sure if I like it or not. I don't exactly. I don't know the ins and outs, so that's another thing. But that watermark thing is terrible across the entire bottom of the video, and I haven't. I'm gonna keep on looking for other software. Um, Especially, I'd love to find something free. I don't make any money on doing any of this stuff, and I don't want to put money into it unless I can make money. Um, Not that that's a game. This is more of a hobby, but it kind of would be nice at some point. Yeah, little breakups like that. Some random vents. Now this texture I like too, and sometimes I would go through and replace some of these textures with those. I usually don't try to do it right off the gate, so it's kind of like where I got like a too flat of an area that just has, there's nothing I can do with it with the one texture. I might try to get some other metal pieces in from the other texture, which will blend decent enough if everything aligns right, that is. Um, oh, 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 I shouldn't touch that. This is the other leg. What I just did is probably screw up this side a little bit. That is one thing I've learned too is when you're in symmetry, some of these line up different on one side as the other side. So I'll do this like side of the mech first, and then I'll have to shut off symmetry, and then get back to this side and go over that individually. So what I just did there was kind of a mistake. I used to like to use this texture, but now it looks like a cargo box, so I've been trying to avoid it. Uh-oh. Okay, so these are 180 off. Ah, wow, something that actually lines up. That's so cool. There's so many times that it drives me nuts when I can't get any seams to line up at all for like a big chunk. All right, getting there. So what do we do here? I wish I liked this texture more. I like the format of it, but I'm kind of mixed on it though. It's like sometimes it doesn't look bad, but other times it's like, I don't know if I'm really into it. Now in the past, I did do work for another game quite a while back now, and it was Unreal Tournament. I made maps for it, quite a few. Um, Most of them were done in the very early days, the Unreal Tournament, like the first version, UT99, as it goes by. So while doing that, I um, I made most of my own custom textures and models as well. Models later on, I came back and made a map for Unreal Tournament 2007 called CTF Morgoth. I was kind of into Lord of the Rings at the time, and it's very gothic, lava castle, dark um, map. But yeah, that's so I got some experience then doing like level design work, and then I also went through and tried making some games. I came pretty close to having some successful stuff with actual programming and whatnot. Um, and of course, more models and graphics and textures and everything for those games. So I kind of look at putting these blocks together, kind of like doing a model like you would in like 3D Max or Maya or one of those programs. Um, a little bit. I mean, obviously you get a lot more choices. You could do any angle you'd like. Like here, I'm limited to the 22.5 degree angles um, in any direction, at least currently. Now, I've seen a couple other games that allow you to place a block and stretch it out so you can actually come up with any angle you would like. Now, if this game ever had that, that would be quite the eye opener on what you could build. reasons why I've avoided saucer type ships like Star Trek or long wedge shaped ships like Star Destroyers and whatnot is because I can't do the angles in the game. So you could only try to simulate them, which I usually don't think looks very good. But if you could do any angle you wanted, the potential of what you could make would go through the roof. And I've seen it done in a couple other games recently, and I do think it is possible this game could do that as well at some point. I don't know if the devs are even into looking at that. It doesn't really need it. It's got a lot going on for it already. But it is something that I do believe is absolutely possible. But they'd have to probably change their core engine on how it's doing the voxels a little bit. Actually, I think I got this wrong. I think that should be this. And this shouldn't. Oop. Yeah. Hmm. More stuff that's backwards. Oops. Not worried about the holes in the floor yet. I'll have to fix that up later. It's getting there. Eh. Too much of that. Oh, I got a nice little trim line here. It's getting there. A little bit more on there, and then these assemblies over here. See if I got the textures right. Nope. Or the block alignment, I should say. Ah, one was right, one wasn't. Oops. There we go. What to put here? Try something different. How about here? Did I get this right? Yes. Could rotate this, but I think just go with that. Interesting. Oh, what's that? Oh, there's all sorts of screwed up in there. I see. That just cannot be, though. And the bottom doesn't line up very nicely. I ain't gonna do much. Let's try this one. Huh. Not sure if I want to do that either. I guess for now. I get these right. Yes. Try that. Actually, oh, I got this gap up here too. Sure what I had going on in there. What do we got for guns? So we got 4 of these, 4 of those, 4 of those, and 4 of those. I think that was no, and then 3 of these up here. That's just space. That's not doing anything. You know, I'll leave it for now. That could be a good place to dump some parts or something. Yeah, sometimes you run into this problem too, where it's like, there it goes. These curved pieces are really touchy at texturing. They just need this, whatever angle it's looking for you to be at. There, for now, we'll just dump a couple blocks in here to make it look better. How about a couple of those to cover that up? Yeah, you know, do the same over here too. This would be a great place to see if, yeah, hey, that works there. Just enough to break it up. Can I get another one to line up? Oh yeah, sorta. Okay. Let's try a little bit more. Kinda. Yeah, that's not bad. Oh, this is the other side again. As you can see how long this is taking, it's one of the big reasons why I fear really big things to do, because oh my gosh, this can take a long time to do. But yeah, this is just kind of a fairly small in comparison, so it's not that bad. Oh jeez, no blocks. What do I got going on here? That's not what I thought it was. Alright, well, I think for the most part, it is textured now, except for, of course, the other side. So we're going to turn off symmetry now and hit this up. Nothing. Oh, well. There we go. These line up. That one does. Okay. All right. Well, that's the that's pretty much the next part of it. A couple missing things here and there. And it is a textured mech. Guess the next part would be coloring. Of course, and then kind of going through it and doing a second revision on it. So that's kind of the God, how do I explain it? So I always do this part first. I get the base textures in once I have like the model worked out, and then I will tweak the textures, but I'll start to color it, and then do another layer of going through it, and then adding some decals and little accent pieces and detail pieces and things like that. And that's pretty much the process. And I've done this so many times that I kind of, at least with my theme, I've done it so many times I just kind of know what needs to go where, more or less. So I do very little thinking about it anymore. I do want to branch out and do some different theme stuff at some point here. But yeah. Another thing I'll take a look at now too is the position and where the texture lights are. Like I've got, texture light here, 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 here. I think it's overdoing it a little bit in this area. So what I'm thinking about doing is maybe adding something different in some places, just to give it that break up, that variety. Maybe put a different light here. Different things like that. But yeah, that'll wrap up this part of the tutorial. I plan on doing one more on the second part of this, coloring and decaling and tweaking. And we'll see where we go from there. All right, well, you all have a good day, and I hope to get that other tutorial out probably tomorrow, I do believe. But yeah, I think this is coming along pretty good. And I'll still think about making this some kind of tower, but man, it's just not a good design for that application. In fact, yeah, mechs just don't do much of anything for the game, but who knows, maybe someday. Not gonna hold my breath on that one though. Okay, have a good day all. See ya.